Guys, learn how to cook. Or that you shouldn't buy things that you cannot afford. Yes, this is a very important topic that I want to talk about. And this is about finances. The reason why I'm talking about this is because I've seen a lot of people falling into a very big trap of financial loss, going broke badly. As a student, I've experienced some few things, and managing finances is one of the hardest things as a student. And one of the main reasons is that we receive money from different entities. For instance, they are government-sponsored students. They are not really like government. Let me say all sponsored students. They have a kind of a steady monthly allowances that come into their token. And we have students that are sponsored by their parents. These ones, you're not really sure of how much you receive at the end of the month or at the beginning of the month. And then we have self-sponsored students. Their income depends fully on how much they are able to work for that month. Now, as a student, how do we manage your finance? How do we manage our finances? From my own experience and from what I've seen from other students, there are some few tips. There are some few tips that I want us to talk about or discuss. For this video particularly, I'm going to give you 10 tips that I've learned throughout my journey as a student, and they are really helping me a lot, and I'm very sure they can help you too. So tip number 1, create a budget. Now, the most important thing about creating a budget is that it helps you plan the amount of money that you have to what you anticipate or things you think you're going to spend your money on. Make a proper budget that will suit the amount of money you have. This will monitor your expenses. So creating a budget is a very important thing that can really help you in controlling how much you actually spend on things throughout the month. So tip number 2, track your expenses. Now, how do you track your expenses? Identify the areas where you spend more money. For those who are using the banking system, it's very easy to track your expenses, because all the time you tap your card, all the time you use your card, there's a record of where your money is going. So you can easily monitor and track how much money and where you're going, where you're spending more. So for those who are not using the banking system, it's still the same. You can still identify what have I bought and where did I buy it from. So these places help you to learn how to minimize your expenses you're buying. With that, you're learning how to manage the little amount of money that you receive from your sponsors or from your parents or from anyone, or from even yourselves, or different sources of income. So things that take our money, I mean things that we spend more money on. For instance, constantly going to the supermarket, constantly going to the restaurants. These include fast foods. This includes buying coffee or just grabbing snacks, and even going to shopping, buying clothes or changing your wardrobe every now and then. Track those kind of expenses, and then you put them down in a way that now that I've spent this month on clothes, that means next month I don't have to buy clothes. That way you are saving your money. So my next tip is now saving. Now when it comes to savings is a topic on its own. It's a very big, wide topic that I can't really talk about it as a own, but it's a strategy on how to manage your finances. savings is very important in the sense that one moment or one period of the month you may have an emergency that you really have to spend money. But since you have not saved, you may start having problems, or you may be forced to go and start borrowing and ABCD. But when you save, you have an emergency income that can solve those kind of issues that keep arising during the month. So maybe I'll record a fresh video on savings, on how to save as a student. But savings is a very important topic, and it's a very wide discussion. I cannot really exhaust it in this episode for now, but it's one of the tips that I've really looked at as a very important point for every student to learn how to observe. So tip number 4, guys, this one is affects almost all of us. Let's learn to live within our means. See, as students, we come from different backgrounds. We have different sources of income. We have different amounts of money that we receive from our different sources of income. So why should I spend money that I don't have? So when you live within your means, you manage the little money you have. So you shouldn't buy things that you cannot afford on a normal day. Living within your means is very important. Now, when do we become victims of living outside our means? Mostly influenced by our peers, the people around us, our classmates, our roommates, our friends. Because we see that we want to fit into a group of people, we are forced to buy things that make us qualify for that group of people. So let's learn to live within our means. Let's not strain so much that we end up living a life of debts. Tip number 5. This one is very nice, guys. This one is very nice. In fact, the best. Engage in income generating activities around the university. Now, these are simple businesses that you can actually get involved in that can generate income. What are these activities? For instance, printing. For the ladies, they do a lot of stuff with ladies stuff. Nails, hair, braids, and all those are small income generating activities that you can get involved in that can raise money. Yeah. And also cooking. Now there's research writing, and then teaching. It can be teaching your fellow students, can be teaching language. For instance, for those in Russia here, we have can teach English, or you can teach French. You can even teach Russian to other students. So these are small things that you can engage in as a student to supplement your income, to increase the amount of money you have. Tip number 6 actually involves the use of online resources. This tip is for those students who have a lot of subscriptions online and ABCD. Let's take advantage of the free resources that we find around us. For instance, you can be notes from fellow students, free websites, free apps, YouTube, and all these learning resources that can help you study to save the little money you have, instead of having a lot of expenses in subscriptions that you may not even need. So take advantage of free resources that can aid you in school instead of overspending. Tip number 7, guys, learn how to cook and learn how to prepare your own meals. We spend a lot of money buying food from restaurants and fast food restaurants, but we can actually prepare our own meals. We can go to the shops, buy the resources that you need to prepare your own food and learn how to cook your own food. Do that for a month, and I'm telling you, you will not regret it. You will observe that you've saved a lot of money than every time buying food, buying food, buying food. Learn how to prepare your own meals. So this does not only apply to cooking. It can also apply to some things that you can actually do by yourself. It can be anything, even doing your laundry. Yeah? So many things that are very easy to do, you don't really need to spend money on. So identify those small things that you can actually do by yourself and fix it instead of spending. Tip number 8, guys, this is borrowing. Avoid borrowing money that you can't be able to pay back immediately. This is very common. For tip number 8, try as much as you can not to borrow. I know why I'm saying this, because I've seen people who have borrowed money to do stuff from friends, from roommates, from classmates, but they have borrowed so much that they have failed to pay back, and in the process they end up losing gadgets like phones, laptops, even clothes, shoes, just to pay up their debts. Try as much as possible not to borrow. I'm not saying borrowing is bad. Borrowing actually is good, especially when you're in really need. You can ask for something from your friend and you sort out your issue and then you pay back. But now, how much are you going to borrow? This is also another important point. Why should you borrow an amount that is way bigger than your pocket? Let's say you borrow $100, yet you know very well that by the end of the month, the amount you receive is maybe exactly $100. You definitely either not pay that person, or you'll pay that person and remain a whole month broke. You'll end up going back again to borrow from another person just to keep surviving. So what I'm saying is that try as much as possible to avoid borrowing, because not just failing to pay, but you're going to break your relationships with your friends. Yeah, I know a lot of people out there have seen this and have experienced this, and this can be avoided simply by following some of the tips that I said earlier. So tip number 9, this is very practical, and a lot of people will take it in a different way. This is identifying needs and wants. So each one has what they really need to survive. I'm talking from a student perspective. So guys, don't take me wrong, because everyone has their different needs and everyone has their different wants. So what do you want is different from what you need. For example, you need food, you need a phone, because these are basic needs, things that will help you survive. You need clothes. But then there are those things that we just want. Let's say we live in a hostel and you just feel like, I need to decorate my room. I want it to look like a presidential palace. That's already an expense that you as a student may not be able to afford. So let's differentiate what we need and what we want. Remember, these are financial tips that we as students can actually adopt and save as much money as possible. Why do we really need to save money? To live a comfortable life as a student. As simple as that. So simplify your life as much as possible. Finally, tip number 10. Very simple and very straightforward. Use the bus. As a student, learn how to use the bus. Every time taking taxi and taxi and taxi, it's going to make you spend a lot of money. Learn how to use the bus. It's very cheap, affordable, and it's always available. Now, the reason why students most of the time start to use taxis is one, when you don't know where you're going. For instance, for those within Russia, sometimes you go for cycles and you don't know the hospital you're going to or the building you're going to, so you definitely order a taxi so that you go straight there. That one is an understandable situation. That happens once in a while, but I'm talking about every day going to school and then you take taxi. Avoid that. Learn to use the bus to save as much money as possible. Now, another reason as to why people take taxi is waking up late to school. When you are late, you definitely take a taxi. And how many times can you be late? Yes, all of us can be late once in a while, but why should you be late every day and be forced to use a taxi to rush to a class? So to avoid that kind of expense, wake up early, prepare for your class, catch up with the bus, and get to school. So guys, those are my 10 tips that have helped me save a lot of money and have reduced my expenses as a student. I hope these tips will also help you. If you have other tips that you think I would have included in my 10 tips, just put them in the comment. I'll find them and others also can learn from that. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share to your friends so that this video can spread and the message can be passed around to other students. Alright, see you in the next video.